The Habs made a few moves around the trade deadline, most notably sending Thomas Plekanec to the Leafs, but they didn't move captain Max Pacioretty, which surprised some.
Yes, it did. Eric Engels, Sportsnet.ca, wrote of the Habs deadline, Bergevin does nothing to reinvigorate the Canadian fan base at the deadline. And Eric Engels joins us now live from Montreal. Eric, thank you very much for the time. Always appreciate it. You good?
I'm great, man. Hope everything is well over there.
It is. I've got DJ beside me carrying the load, 460. Always appreciate that. Let me ask you this. What is, I mean, obviously the fan base wanted something. Do they know what they wanted at the deadline?
I think what they want is a sense of what's going to happen moving forward and something to get excited about in the future, because there hasn't been a lot to be excited about this edition of the Montreal Canadiens. And, you know, it's funny, I go back to June 15th when the move was made to acquire Jonathan Drouin. Everybody knew what the Canadiens were giving up in Mikhail Sergachev, especially Marc Bergevin, who didn't really want to trade him for anybody, had the opportunity earlier in the year at the deadline last year to potentially move him for Drouin, wasn't willing to do that. So, you know, this opportunity came about, and I was thinking at the time, man, this team, which finished with 104 points and the fourth best defensive numbers in the league, just got a lot better. It was a big move. I believe we talked on that day, and I said exactly that. And, you know, at that time, Andrei Markov was still in the fold, Alexander Radulov was still in the fold, and that defense wasn't completely undone and remade in a way that nobody outside of Marc Bergevin was arguing was going to be better than last year. So what a difference 15 days made, and the team completely changed, and seemingly nothing was done to replace the bodies that were lost. The Canadiens cruised into the season with $9 million of cap space. That's like the New York Yankees underspending on their roster, and there was a tangible lack of excitement at the beginning of the year from the fan base, and you go through what they've been through so far. You know, they needed something, an inkling of what the future might look like that hopefully looks different than this, and I don't think they got it come Monday.
No, I didn't.
Eric, easy question for you. Why does Marc Bergevin still have a job? Like, if we were having this conversation 2 years ago, we would say the Canadian team with the best shot at winning a Stanley Cup was no question Montreal. Yeah. And now look where we are. With all of the cap space they have, with all the picks they now have, why should he be the person to decide what they do with it?
You know what? I'm going to put myself in Jeff Molson's shoes, because that's what you're asking me to do. And it seems as though he's decided that Marc Bergevin is staying around with the chance to turn this team around. And if I had to put myself in his shoes and in his mindset, I think it has to do with the fact that for the first 4.5 years that Marc Bergevin was on the job, there were very few GMs that did a better job than he did. A lot of great work was done. Yes, there were mistakes mixed in between. But for the first time, going back, you know, just post the Subban-Weber trade, which could be argued to the death, and no matter what side you fall on it, that everything that's happened since then has been a series of mistakes. And I think, you know, this is his first opportunity to face up to those mistakes and do something about it. And I think, you know, Molson is interested in that stability. They believe it's important for the franchise, and they want to give Bergevin that chance. It's kind of like in 2015 where Marc Bergevin said, I'm in a foxhole with Michel Therrien, I'm not going to fire him, and he didn't. And then, you know, a year later he had to do that because he gave him that opportunity and things started to slide again. So I would say if he is sticking around, and all indications are that he is sticking around, then I think the margin for error is razor thin.
So, Eric, yesterday we were having this conversation. We had it on Monday as well about Pacioretty hanging around. Now what do you do? It seemed like the city wanted him out. And to me, the only thing that saved it would be if you could get in John Tavares, who could help you score goals and provide you with someone who could feed Max Pacioretty. Then I look at what the money is going out and how you could tie that much money into three. Is that even doable in Montreal to get John Tavares there? And do you think that could be the savior for Marc Bergevin?
Yeah, you know, from a money perspective, Marc Bergevin could take a page out of Jim Rutherford's book or somebody else who's been aggressive and just say, you know what, we'll figure that part out after if we can get the players that we want. I think if John Tavares makes it to market, or at least is going to field offers, he's not going to get a better one than what the Canadiens are going to throw at him. The question is he willing to come here? As pertaining to Max Pacioretty, you know, if this is being viewed as some opportunity for Pacioretty to save his job here and turn things around, I don't see that happening. I think, I was 50-50 that he'd be moved before the deadline. I'm at about 99% that he'll be moved before July 1st, which is the first day he could be signed to a new contract. And I want people to understand, and Max Pacioretty understands this, and Marc Bergevin understands this. This is not about a declining season in production where he only has 17 goals and he's on pace for 24 when he's been a perennial 30-goal guy. This is about a guy who's under contract for $4.5 million, is a perennial 30-goal guy over the last 5 seasons, and a great even-strength scorer and on the right side of 30. And if you can trade him and bring in pieces at center ice or on defense, which are more critical to winning, you have to do that. And I think Pacioretty understood that. I think Marc Bergevin, that's why he asked for so much and why this deal didn't get done, because he needed a roster player in that deal, and the teams that stepped up that were in playoff contention didn't want to give one up. Perhaps that opportunity will be more live at the draft. I expect that it will be. Like I said, I think 99% he's out the door.
Pacioretty said he didn't ask for a trade, and sometimes you can ask for something without asking for something.
Yeah.
Does he actually want to be there past this year?
Listen, we have to take him at his word, but in my view, what clearly happened here is it was made obvious to him that he was being shopped for the exact reasons that I just mentioned. The Canadiens need players in certain positions that they don't have enough of, be it at center ice or on defense, a left shot defenseman who can play with Shea Weber and serve as an adequate partner. He understood with his contract situation that he would be the conduit to making that happen. And, at first I'm really upset and I want to stay, and, you take it personally. And then after 2 months of dealing with that, a market like this and all the questions and everything that came with it, I think it was, and I'm pretty sure based on people that I've spoken to, and pretty sure watching the actions of Pacioretty on the ice and off of it, that, yeah, he was ready to go. And, I stand by Elliot Friedman and Nick Kyprios, who reported as much on Hockey Night in Canada. Those guys have as good a sources as anybody in the hockey world. And when they were willing to go to air with something like that, they knew what they were talking about. Now, when Max Pacioretty says he never asked for a trade, that's true. He never asked for a trade. And same way, it could still be true that he still wanted out by the end of that turmoil situation.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested in a guy they did trade in Thomas Plekanec. What original 6 team is he going to be on next year? Is there a better chance he's going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, or is he going to be coming back to Montreal?
Yeah, well, I think the chances are very strong that he'll be back in Montreal, and that depends, obviously, on what happens with the Maple Leafs and whether or not they'd be willing to extend him when they'll have the best opportunity to do so long as he belongs to them. But, one of the things that I reported when Thomas Plekanec was traded is that Marc Bergevin did consult with Plekanec, even though he didn't have to. He had no trade protection in his deal, but he made it clear that he wanted to stay in the East, and Bergevin had some opportunities to trade him out West, but worked with him and worked with other teams to try to get the best possible return for him. And, he got a really good one in 2 prospects that could be NHL players and a second-round pick. That's pretty much what he was after in a deal like this, if not more. He got more than what he was maybe after. And it turns into a way better deal if he ends up with Plekanec on a 1-year kind of cap-saving deal as a depth centerman in Montreal, which clearly, knowing what the depth is at that position, he'd be welcome with open arms.
I got a bunch of friends who are Habs fans, and they need me to ask this question before we let you go. What was Marc Bergevin saving the cap space for?
Yeah, I think, and I can only put my opinion on it. And I think they went into the beginning of the season hoping that they could get off to a really good start, which would put them in a leveraged position and potentially be shoppers at the deadline. I think that's what the money was for.
Right.
It just so happened that because they got off to the worst start in 76 years, that leverage disappeared. And I think there was opportunity for Marc Bergevin to take on contracts potentially and acquire more picks by doing so with the flexibility he had on the cap, the flexibility he had on the roster. He said that no team gave him the opportunity to do that before Monday's deadline. It's a shame. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan and you see that they didn't spend that money one way or the other, be it to bring in picks by taking on expiring contracts or obviously to add to this team, which desperately needed some help, I mean, you should be really disappointed, and I don't blame anybody for feeling that way. And I wonder what kind of damage repair the Canadiens can do with longtime season ticket holders, with their fans who fill this building on a nightly basis and buy all the product here, because some of it needs to be done.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. We're never disappointed with the information that we get from you. Always appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight.
My pleasure. Take care, guys.
There's Eric Engels, a solid follow if you are a Habs fan or if you're just an NHL fan.